It's another week and it's another RaceSpot TV primetime here on iRacing Live. This time we head to Montreal, Canada and the circuit Gilles Villeneuve for some IndyCar racing action. Join us for the green flag after these short messages.
Watch Ernie, go, go, go. Car right, car right, car right, car right. Watch, car right. Watch, damn it. Oh, get ready. Dude, more heads up in that. Jeez.
Right on the back wing. Can he make it happen?
Yes! Yes! Push like hell. We gotta stay in front of these guys.
Both drivers on the push to pass. Contact in the pit lane.
All right, sexy. Let that eagle fly. What do I do? What happened? Push here. Push hard. Let's go get this guy. Car outside. We're behind you. So, clear outside. Good job. Just spun behind you. I don't know if you got him or not.
He got out of it so hard. Look at these guys are all over the back.
Full throttle.
IndyCar. The in and out lap. What's next?
Come and get the checkers, big boy. Oh, baby, that was good. He hit me. Inside, inside, outside, inside, outside.
2017 Verizon IndyCar Series. See what's next.
You know, racing the truck at Eldora versus, say, racing a sprint car at Eldora, it's not even comparable. It's just really slow motion. The car kind of floats around more. Challenging because they are so heavy, and it's just way different.
Hello and welcome back to RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. It's me, Connery Maddock, and joining me in the box today will be the ever knowledgeable Jack Styles. The weather is 27 degrees in the air and the track temperature is 28 degrees, that is in Celsius. Mostly cloudy with winds gusting around the southwest only at 6 kilometers per hour. Qualifying is underway, and now, Jack, we usually see this track in some other open wheel series that we can mention. But so this is going to be an interesting challenge for these IndyCars with how much downforce they have, and with the amount of slow corners that are on this racetrack. Not very used to them.
Yeah, that's true. Not a lot of these corners on this circuit are very fast. A lot of them are quite tight and twisty chicanes, so obviously these IndyCars, they need all the power they have to be able to get around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at 235 miles an hour. But they're bringing that all here, putting a load of downforce onto it, and then throwing them onto quite a tight and twisty circuit. And it's going to be quite interesting to see how the drivers handle that power today.
Yeah, exactly, and one driver on a qualifying lap, on his flying lap, we suspect is the #1 driver of Fernando Guerrero. He is in the championship fight for the iRacing standings coming towards the end of this season. He's right up there inside of the top 5. Let's see if he can put down his authority in this qualifying session as he avoids the wall of champions across the start-finish line, which is going to be at the end of this straight here. And let's see what time that he does. It's going to be a 1:20.5, which puts him 6th for now. But that's an okay qualifying effort, I would say, from Fernando Guerrero. But I think he's got a lot more in him, Jack.
Yeah, he does. I mean, we know this guy's quick. He's sitting 4th in the standings at the moment, behind Austin Espiti, Liam Quinn and Henry Bennett, who's leading this. We've got Henry and Liam both in this race, I know that for sure. So we have at least three of the main title contenders all in this race, and it's going to be very interesting today.
Yep, exactly. And looking at those standings, in fact, Henry Bennett was the current points leader by only a couple of points over Liam Quinn, who is also in this race. Then it's going to be Austin Espati in that third place position as well in the standings. He is also in this race, and so is Fernando Guerrero in that fourth. And John Downing, even though he is in Division 2, as far as iRacing is concerned, he still holds that fifth spot in the overall standing. So that would be that's an absolutely fantastic run for him early on in this season. He's currently qualified down in 16th place, so not really where he wants to be. But again, for a driver in Division 2, he's doing very well.
Yeah, definitely, and obviously we do see sometimes drivers from lower divisions just poking their head ups into the top of the standings. Obviously, 12th in the standings is a Brazilian guy called Bruno. I'm not going to try and pronounce the rest of his name because I wouldn't be able to, I'd butcher names, but he's currently 12th and he's Division 8, so we can see that in this series it's very varied. We get a very different structure of drivers, and we've got a very big varying abilities in this field, so it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out today.
Yeah, and I just want to bring up the weather again. It is mostly cloudy, so the sun isn't beating down on that racing surface. So the track temp is only 20 degrees Celsius, and that means these IndyCars they can have a little bit of trouble on the first lap getting heat into those tires. Of course, I don't think they use tire warmers in this series, so they have to get heat into them pretty much straight away, or it'll be like driving on ice. So that could be something to look out for at the start of this race as we head towards the grid now. Taking pole position, it will be your current points leader, Henry Bennett, with a 120.0, only just though. Then it's going to be Christian Steele lining up next to him. Row 2 will consist of Fernando Guerrero and Yao Valverde. Then it's going to be Jorge Marquinez, Timo Aronco, Austin Espati, Liam Quinn, Christian Carbanca, Marco Pierre, Richard Tam, Andrew Kinsella round out the top 12. Then it's Olivia Dean, Marcus Wolmuth, Caton Boomer Bash, John Downing, Pierre Boudon, Neil McBride, Wayne Sanderson, Sid Gonzalez, Alex Everett, Humberto Ratzman, Kleber Mora, Carsten Broadway, Rodrigo Azevedo, and Matthew Talbot will be rounding out your full grid here in the IndyCar Series. 26 cars. We did have a little bit of a scare. We thought the race would split, but no, we have a full field here, and that could be, in one way, very, very dangerous, and in another way, very, very exciting, Jack.
Yeah, it could. It means we're going to get some good racing up and down the field, but it could also mean we may see some incidents between drivers who have much more ability than some others. We know guys in this race do spend a lot of time in the IndyCar, so it's going to be interesting to see how that pace varies, how the ability varies as well, because this is not an easy car to drive, and it is not an easy car to drive quickly.
Yeah, exactly, and especially on this first lap, your drivers have to be oh so careful to keep the heat in those tires, or get some heat in those tires, because the first first half of the lap would be very, very sketchy for these guys as the tire heat starts to come in, as we're waiting for just a couple of cars to take themselves to what is the back straight here at circuit Gilles Villeneuve. So it's only going to be a short, perhaps not even a quarter of a pace lap before we get going. Around about 10 seconds is the limit here for these drivers to get themselves on the grid. So we'll be heading our way out not too long now as we click over to that pace car. Now it'll start to head itself off any minute now. It's going to be Henry Bennett, currently pole position by about 2/10 of a second, 2.5 of a second. So he is looking very, very good for this race right now, as your drivers just get away from their spots, and we'll just wait for the green flag and that pace car to pull in. 24 cars qualified, 26 take themselves to the grid. 2 obviously did not set a qualifying time either. They didn't want to, or they invalidated their laps. Pace car takes towards pit road. Field under the control of the number 4 of Henry Bennett. And he goes. We're going to go racing here at Montreal in the Verizon IndyCar Series. Heading themselves down into turn 1. It's all fair and square at the front. A little bit of battling behind, though. There was the number 10 of Valverde just going side by side briefly with Austin Espati, but behind those Ronco and Liam Quinn. They're heading away side by side, coming out the first couple of corners, but Liam Quinn will have to cede that position there. Carbanca had a little bit of a look coming down into this Fisher chicane, but he's not. Oh, and there's a big wreck, actually. Liam Quinn in the wall, and that's not how he wanted to start his race. Luckily, he's well out of the way of all the other traffic coming down through that section of track, but I think that was just a little bit too much curb and a little bit of the cold tires factoring in there, Jake.
Yeah, definitely, and I think he got a little bit too much further on the curb, a little bit too much power too early on these cold tyres, and he's just out of this race already. That's unlucky for Liam, has got a lot of damage on that car. We know he's fast, he's second in the championship, so that's unfortunate for him, but everyone got very cleanly, very safely through the first few corners, obviously apart from Liam, which is unfortunate for him. Carsten Brodvey, he didn't take the start, he had to start from pit lane, so he is currently at the back of your field in 25th, and he's going to be using this race now to gain us back as much time as he can that he's lost.
Exactly, as your drivers, at least your front of the field head their way down towards the final chicane, and obviously careful to avoid that wall of champions on the exit of the corner as they come towards to complete lap 1. Someone's gone straight across the final chicane there, and a little bit of contact between Espati and Cabanca, I think it was as well. Ronco was the one that shot across the chicane first. I wonder if we can get a replay of this one, and it'd be interesting to see what happened behind between Austin Espati. Is actually Espati almost followed Ronco across the chicane, had a little bit of contact with Cabanca's front wing, but they all managed to get away with relatively little damage, a little bit of a bent rear wing for Espati and a little bit of a bent front wing for Cabanca, but that was a little bit of a mess coming into the final chicane there, Jack.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think people are just starting, they just need some time to get used to the track conditions, get used to the car. First lap is always going to be the hardest because you're in a big pack and it is going to be very hard for you to concentrate because people are going to be braking. Obviously, these cars don't have any brake lights, so the driver has to predict when the other car is on the brakes. Obviously, that's a bit easier because you can just see the gap coming down quite a lot, but they are also very sensitive on the brakes, these cars. They do not have ABS as far as I'm aware, so they are hard to brake, and you're using a lot of braking power to stop from a big amount of speed coming into that final chicane.
Absolutely huge wreck. Number 16 car, Pierre Bourdon, on his roof. In fact, what has happened there? This is a huge wreck coming down into what is, I believe, the third chicane here at Montreal. Oh, we just get a hit at the right rear tyre by Alex Everett. Everett not expecting the car ahead and to be slow on the exit, on the apex of the corner, shall we say, and just punted him right up into the air. Bourdon goes for a roll and slide on that roll hoop in towards the middle of the track, and that's a very, very dangerous situation indeed, as Vedo actually had to stop his car completely and get going again around the driver that was stricken in the middle of the track. And wow, that was a weird incident.
That definitely was, and it just looks like Alex Everett went for the pass, but obviously the gap wasn't there. The 24 car obviously also got spun round. He just backed into the wall, so might have a little bit of rear wing damage. Also has a bit of front wing damage as well from where he collected that car. But the car, Pierre, got very unlucky there. He just got that front wing under the wheel, and that flipped the car over. And that's a very weird incident to see, Connery, but it's not one which I think we're going to see more like it throughout this race.
Yeah, and more problems for the number 5 car of Cabanca. He had the contact coming towards the World Champion chicane, and he's had another little bit of contact as well. The driver diving down his inside, Richard Tam, in the number 13, just tagged the left rear tyre of that number 5 machine, just spun him around, and actually that's some heavy impact to the rear wing from the Armco barrier there. So Cabanca not having a very, very great day at all. As we look towards the front of the field, in fact, it's going to be Henry Bennett leading by almost a second as they come across the line to complete lap 3 number here. But your leaders aren't really breaking away. They're spreading out a little bit, but there's no breakaways right now, especially if you look down towards at least P number 5. Your top 5 are all in sight with each other.
Yeah, definitely. We just had Austin Espati, one of our championship contenders, onto pit lane, had an incident coming through turn 6 and 7. He has lost his front wing, unfortunately, so that has put him out of the running for the rest of this race, which is unfortunate for him. He's just now coming down onto pit lane to get that front wing repaired. But Henry Bennett continuing to lead. He has not got a big lead, currently 1 second over that number 3 car of Christian Steele, and Fernando Guerrero in 3rd in that number 1 car. So the top 4 covered by just under 2.5 seconds. So we are going to see quite a good fight for this top 4. Throughout this pack you have, well, throughout this field, sorry, you do have other packs. People sort of, at the moment, just pack racing, trying to save some fuel so they can put a little bit less ink on the pit stops.
Exactly, a little bit of a spin for Marcus Woolmuth. I believe this is coming into the second chicane here. Just looped it all by himself, and no help from anyone else. Allowed 2 cars past him, which was the cars of John Downing and Neil McBride. These were in P12 and P13 last time by, but advanced them up 1 position. As actually the battle between Downing and Neil McBride will continue, perhaps off of the hairpin there, but John Downing got a fantastic run off the hairpin. Neil McBride will actually use the whatever bits of draft that he's getting here on the run down towards the final chicane. He's not going to be in a position to make a move, especially a dive bomb here, especially is a very, very, very risky move indeed with how tight that chicane is. But when you look right, actually got a very good run coming through the final chicane. Now he can make a move coming down into turn number 1 if he so wishes. Yes, he moves us towards the inside line here. He has to get this move done now because he'll be on the outside for the second part, and he gets that move done. That was pretty textbook, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. That's just a very good move there. So that's what you want to see. A little bit later on the brakes, just down on the inside into turn 1. Good move.
Oh, and he's looped it.
Yeah, he has.
Oh my god, just one is from hero to 0 there for Neil McBride, getting the pass done, and then just a couple of corners later, just all on his own, looped it in the first chicane, going down the hill right there, and now he has to do that all over again, maybe coming down into turn 1 next time by who knows, as actually this battle for inside your top 10, inside your top 5 in fact, Fernando Guerrero has dropped back and considerably from Henry Bennett, and that's because he got past the likes of Christian Steele and Yao Valverde as well. So this has just allowed your leader in Henry Bennett just to get away around about 1.7 seconds at this stage. But the rest of the top 5 very, very close together indeed.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Christian might have had a problem because he was going very slow coming out of what looks like the second chicane. It looks like he may have even had a slowdown because he had to slow down so much, but he has now dropped down to position number 4, and he has let the number 1 and number 10 cars through, and he's now back into the clutches of Jorge Martinez. So he might even drop to P5 by the end of this lap. That's unlucky for Christian. He had good pace, but Henry Bennett currently leading this field by 1.7 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Henry Bennett doing what he usually does in these IndyCar races. He pretty much lives and breathes it as far as iRacing is concerned here, and he's just stamping his authority on the rest of this field, which aren't slow drivers by any means. Just Henry Bennett in these IndyCars on road courses is just an absolutely insane driver, managing to pull out these gaps at the front of the field. And meanwhile, looking down your field, though, more trouble for the number 24 of Alex Everett. Actually, he's been in a couple of incidents already so far this race, and this was a hopeful move coming down on the number 25 car, down into the final chicane on Kleber Mora, and actually the door had been shut, and then he looped it on exit. Yep, those rear tires aren't going to grip up on the exit of that corner there, and that is the price that Alex Everett will have to pay. In fact, he's taken the tow back towards pit road. I think he's going to retire the car.
Yeah, he has. That's unfortunately Alex's day over, but those rear tyres were just not going to be able to deal with the amount of power that these cars have, and that's unfortunate for him. He did do a couple of donuts actually next to where he spun before he towed it back to pit lane, but Henry Bennett still continuing to dominate this field. Lead is now 2 seconds, but Yao Valverde there in the number 10 car just set the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1 minute 21.269, so just showing that actually running in a pack is going to give you a little bit more pace because you're going to get the draft coming down that back straight.
Yep, exactly. Even though that lap time was actually only about 0.03 of a second faster than your race leader. So it's a very, very narrow margin to gain a fastest lap, but a fastest lap it is. And let's see what Valverde, is that how you pronounce it, can do in the rest of this race here, especially coming up towards the pit stops. Those would be around about lap 18, lap 19, lap 20 is kind of the pit window we're looking at here, as actually the drivers are actually starting to negotiate some lap traffic. That was number 26 of Matthew Talbot, just going a lap down on your race leader. Got well out of the way, no problems for Henry Bennett. I don't think there'll be any problems for the cars further behind either. Looking back towards the number 7 car, the number 7 car has had an issue. Wayne Sanderson this is, and he was looking at trying to get past Humberto Rackman in front of him, and this was coming down into the chicane, and actually I don't think he was actually a little bit late on the brakes there, just almost narrowly avoided running into the back of the number 17 car, and also as a result he also looped it as well. So a lot of spins so far from a lot of your drivers here, Jack. Is that something to do with the cold tires, or is it just the fact that you're trying to put so much power down off these slow speed corners that the rear tires aren't having any of it?
I think it's more down to the fact that these cars have so much power, and the tyres just maybe aren't able to grip, or maybe aren't running, and downforce obviously isn't as effective as low speeds, which you see through these corners. That is one of the challenges here at Montreal. So I think it could either be an experience with the car, could be just trying to deal with the amount of power and the low amounts of grip that they're going to have through the corners. And unfortunately for Wayne, that's an unlucky incident. Had a slight bit of contact with the wall, but I think it was at such low speeds it won't have any effect on the rest of the race and his damage. But Henry Bennett, his lead has come down slightly actually. It's down to about 1.2 seconds. Maybe it's because he's starting to navigate traffic. Maybe he just had a couple of slow laps. So maybe we're going to see that lead going to come down. We're going to get a 5-way battle for the lead.
Yep, that would be absolutely fantastic to see as your leaders head down the back straight for the 8th time over the course of this race. And battle for P number 4, though, coming up. This is Christian Steele versus Jorge Marquinez. Marquinez will try to stick his nose in there. Is he going to make it side by side down into the final chicane? No, he is not. He's smarter than that. It's not the last lap of the race where you could potentially make a move like that. But going side by side through the final chicane is going to slow both cars down immensely. And looking at the long run, that's not going to do anything for you in terms of gaining positions later on in the race. So Jorge Marquinez just lifted out of it and just looking for another opportunity somewhere else on track. Very smart move there from Marquinez there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he's just playing the long game here, maybe waiting for Steele to make a mistake. But putting a car at the inside, especially into that last chicane with the Wall of Champions, is not a very good idea. You're going to probably cause an accident if you try that, because that chicane is so tight. It's one of the tightest corners on this circuit, and you've obviously got that infamous wall on the exit, and as soon as you touch that concrete wall, you've got damage. But we're going to see him slowly gain up to the back coming into turn 8 and 9, but just not going to be close enough to make a move. Maybe we could see a lunge coming down into turn 10, or maybe he's just going to use the drive coming down the back straight into 13 and 14 in the Wall of Champions.
Yep, and almost a move ahead of them. In fact, that was Valverde. Valverde actually having a look at the move on Fernando Guerrero. Not going to make it work coming down into the turn number 10 hairpin. He has the draft here, but I don't think he'll be making a move coming down into the final chicane. Neither will Jorge Marquinez on Christian Steele, unless Christian Steele makes a mistake coming through this section of track, which I don't think he will, as he navigates that chicane very, very competently indeed. Having a look further down your field, though, other close battles that will be going on. There's a battle for P number 7 that's going on right now. This is Richard Tam and Timo Ronco as well. Ronco got a fantastic run coming through the final chicane. He could line up the pass here coming down into turn number 1, but it doesn't look like he's gaining all that much in the draft. And actually, he's just going to stay behind just for now, coming through turn number 1 and 2. Maybe a little bit of a higher downforce setup on that number 14 machine of Ronco. And looking even further down, there's also a battle between Neil McBride for P number 11, Marcus Wolmoth, and there's also a lap car in the mix there of Matthew Talbot as well. As we actually have a look back towards P number 2, this is Fernando Guerrero versus Valverde. They're heading their way in towards the chicane here, and again, not close enough to make the move of Valverde. I'm going to get that name right at some point during this broadcast. Valverde, there we go. Thank you to our director, Hugo, for correcting me on the pronunciation there. I'll try to stick to it. But Valverde is going to try and make the move at some point over the course of the next few laps, but no opportunities just materializing for him for now, Gilles.
No, he's not. I think he just could be running a little bit more downforce. Ooh, he looks like he may be gaining, actually, on Guerrero in front. Coming down into that last chicane, but just not close enough to make a move. Maybe he can do it coming into turn 1, although it looks like Guerrero had a little bit more pace through the chicane. So I reckon Guerrero in that number 1 car has more downforce, Connery.
Yep, that seems to be the case, as Marquinez actually managed to get past Christian Steele. And let's see how this move was done. Actually, it was side by side coming down the back straight between Christian Steele and Jorge Marquinez. And actually, I think Christian Steele just backed out of that. He found he was on the inside line for the final chicane, but it was a bit of a risky move trying to keep it there, especially when Marquinez wasn't really going to back out of that one going around the outside. So that's a position gain for Marquinez, and a position gain basically through bullying, I would say, Jack.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, he's just those two side by side. Christian Steele is never going to be able to defend from the inside going into that last chicane. So I think that's a sensible move by Christian, just going to be able to preserve his car now for the remaining 22.5 laps. But I think we could see him actually challenge towards the end of this race. We know he has pace. He qualified second, and we know he has the paces. Marquinez nearly collects a back marker there, and that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, that was Pierre Boudon. That was the back marker there. As battle for P number 6 now, Richard Tam versus Timo Ronco. Battle of the runs off of the hairpin there, and actually is fairly equal runs, but the slight advantage goes to Richard Tam that time by. But Ronco will have the draft here, not expecting a move coming down into the final chicane, however. But this is a very, very close battle that has been going on for at least the last 2 laps or so. And this is going to be for P number 6, just outside the top 5. No podium positions fighting for here, but it's points nonetheless in the championship as they head their way down in towards turn number 1. And also another close battle is going to be for P number 8 between Marco Pereira and Andrew Kinsella as well. They're going to head their way down into turn number 1. Kinsella looking to gain another position on his 3 already gained so far in this race. Good run coming out turn number 2 for Kinsella. He can make it his way down the inside of the fish game. No, he's actually going to back out of that. The opportunity was there for him, but again, going too wide into the tight chicanes here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, it's never really a great idea, especially when you're on the first stint of a race that actually does contain one scheduled stop.
Yeah, definitely. And also the pit stop, we're going to see a little bit of strategy, because these cars are probably going to need refueling. And we could see people take tyres, which, because in the Indy cars they do fuel and tyres at the same time, everyone's going to have a new set of tyres, which is then going to throw that dimension into the race of people are going to have cold tyres for a lap. And it also means, how much fuel do you take to get to the end? Do you take too much and be safe and have a slightly longer pit stop and to carry a slightly longer weight as Henry Bennett collects the sausage dog curve, comes through the final chicane, only just misses the wall of champions? But going back to what I was saying earlier, you can either take more fuel and be safe, or take a little bit less fuel and have to fuel safe to the end, but it will mean you have a shorter pit stop.
Yeah, here comes P number 8 though. Battle for P number 8, Pereira and Kinsella side by side coming down into the final chicane, but Kinsella managed to get that move done before the apex, and there goes Pereira spinning on the exit of the corner. Almost collects a car there. I'm actually not sure if he actually collected it. No, very well avoided for Oliver Dean there. Very, very close to being a multiple car pile up there on the front straight coming out of the final chicane. But again, that is why we don't really recommend going side by side into the final chicane, because that can happen. Even though there was no direct contact between the two cars, it was just the change line caught out Pereira on the exit of the corner there, and actually just try to get the power down on the curb while turning as well, and that is basically a death sentence in these cars. It
is, and looking at that incident, Pereira just looks like he got a little bit too far out. He got onto that dirty part of the circuit, onto the curb, as we see Valverde has got round, or Valverde has apparently spun.
Yep, we'll have to see where that has happened. In fact, as I try to look for it, it's actually coming down into the hairpin, actually on the exit of the hairpin. He had a little bit of a lunge on Fernando Guerrero for P number 2. Guerrero actually pushed wide, and then Valverde did have that position gained, but on the exit of the corner, again, he wasn't able to get the traction down. He was hugging that inside curb all the way around the corner, and when he tried to put the traction down again while still turning and still partially on the curb, it just spun the car right around.
Yeah, it did, and I mean, he did actually get the move done past Marquinez there coming through that hairpin, but again, it's just too much power too quickly, and he's dropped down to 5th, unfortunately, but he did get going once again, didn't lose any more positions than he did. He's now dropped about 7 seconds behind our leader of Henry Bennett, but we're just seeing that the drivers today aren't being able to tame this car and be able to tame the amount of power it has, because this IndyCar does have a lot of power. As I said earlier, these things will do 235, 240 mile an hour at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we're taking all that power they need to get up to that speed and then back and putting a load of downforce onto it, which doesn't work at low speeds.
Yeah, battle for P number 16. This is down your field somewhat, but it's still a battle that is raging on right now, as Vedo has the run over Mora coming down onto the back straight. We'll try around the outside coming down into the final chicane, and in fact we'll get that move done well before the braking zone. Mora just lifting out there, just letting the other faster car by. He actually was catching around about almost 2 seconds a lap there. Was Vedo catching the back of Mora, so Mora didn't really want to fight it all that much. Meanwhile, we've had yet another retirement. This is number 17 machine of Humberto Erdmann. Actually, I think it was contact coming into the wall of champions, and hopefully that's a good omen for him, but obviously not a good omen for the rest of his race.
No, it isn't, and that's just unfortunate for him. But as we just seen Neil McBride go round in that number 22 car as well, I think it's just an uncharacteristic error from him hitting the sausage dog curve and coming through a corner. But we're seeing people just making loads of silly mistakes, and it's costing people time. And I mean, other drivers are doing very well to avoid cars which are being stricken across the road. As we see our first, second and third place, they're starting to get a bit closer again. Fernando Guerra is only leading by about 7/10 over Jorge Marquinez, and again with Richard Tam and Temu Ronco, those two are close again. These two are really involved in the battle for that P number 6.
Yeah, exactly. Battle for the race leaders, though, has come down to around about 0.8 of a second on the brakes, coming down into the hairpin turn. There's a little bit of a lap traffic ahead of them. Mora and Austin Espati, who's been involved in a couple of incidents earlier on, has put him so far down the field in that P number, or is going to be P number 16 when he crosses the line next time by. But Guerrero's just eaten into Henry Bennett's lead bit by bit. Henry Bennett has made a couple of mistakes, notably in the sausage curves in the coming into the chicane, this final chicane here, that lost him a bit of time. Let's see what the gap is this time by coming across the line. It is going to be reduced from 0.9 seconds it was last time. Was it reduced down to, though, it's 0.8 seconds. So chipping away at that lead is the #1 machine of Fernando Guerrero, as actually Yao Valverde is actually on his on his scheduled stop. This is going to be an early stop. Usually we see this around lap 18, as lap 16, so it is just within the pit window maybe to get towards the end of this race. And I guess that was a strategic call as well from the #10 machine, because he had a couple of incidents already. Might as well go for the gamble when it didn't stop.
Yeah, definitely is. We've just seen Timo Ronco in the #14 car just managed to get his way past Richard Tam, finally coming through the hairpin. Tam just took a little bit too much speed, got a bit wide, and Ronco just took that opportunity, went up the inside and romped away from him down the straight. So Timo Ronco is now up to 5th thanks to Valverde pitting as well. So interesting to see Valverde coming onto pit lane early. He only had an 8.9 second stop, so that #10 car back out and running.
Yeah, but we also have to remember in this battle for the race lead that's now going to start becoming a thing between Henry Bennett and Fernando Guerrero. As Guerrero has actually closed that gap to within half a second on the back straight here. Jorge Marquez is also on the back of these two as well, so it could be a 3-car fight for the race lead. Maybe after the pit stops, maybe Christian Steele also has an outside chance at making something work here as well, being about 2.4 seconds behind your race leader last time by a little slight bit of lockout from the #4, your race leader coming through turn #2, but it's not going to lose him too much time. But look ahead, yet more lap traffic.
Yeah, definitely, and traffic is...
Oh, and traffic is wrecking! Henry Bennett has to absolutely lift out the throttle there as the two bits of lap traffic. That was Austin Espati and Rodrigo Azevedo were wrecking right in front of him. Luckily, they went right towards driver's left-hand side of the track off the racing surface. But Henry Bennett had to have a massive lift coming up towards that incident. And now this gives Fernando Guerrero a chance coming towards the latter end of this lap. And all of your top 3 are now stacked together.
Yeah, definitely, and that's really brought this battle close. We've got the top 4 now covered by less than 2 seconds. Top 3 is covered by 3/4 of a second, so we've definitely got a 3-way battle for the lead now, and it's going to be interesting to see who has the least downforce and who has the most straight line speed.
Yep, heading their way out of the turn #10 hairpin. Guerrero is as close as he ever has been. Maybe he can bully Henry Bennett into actually lifting out before the braking zone of the final chicane, but no such thing happens. Henry Bennett, ever experienced in this car, knows exactly what to do when you have a car, especially a fast one like Fernando Guerrero, all over your rear wing. And let's see what happens, especially coming in towards the pit stops. They're on lap 18 right now, so we usually expect them to pit at the end of this lap. They may go 1 or 2 laps more depending on how much fuel they have saved, but this could potentially be a battle of the pit crews when all is said and done, Jack, because they're so close together. If they all come down pit road at the same time, that pit stop time is going to matter so much.
Yeah, definitely, and I would expect to see these 3 leaders all pit at the same time. And also Fernando Guerrero and Jorge Marquez, it's interesting to look that they are both on the same team, so we could see some the 2 drivers helping each other to be able to get past Henry Bennett. But Henry Bennett still continuing to lead. He's doing a brilliant job at the front of this race. He's been leading it since the lights went green, as we see more and more drivers now coming down onto pit lane. But Henry Bennett has now definitely got a challenge of 2 teammates behind him, and also we know these 2 guys are fast.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't rule out Christian Steele either at the back of these trio at the front of the field. Christian, a very, very experienced IndyCar racer, and he's looking to exploit that maybe in the second half of this race once the pit stops have finished. If he can get a good jump here, then he will be in with a chance at going for the race win here. Christian Steele's going to head down towards pit road. The rest of your leaders actually stay out, and this will be very, very interesting because Christian Steele, once he gets that fuel in, once he gets the fresher tires on, he will have the tire advantage over the other cars that had just stayed out, and that'll be very, very interesting. As also the leaders have to deal with that traffic, as Henry Bennett has to go across the grass to avoid the traffic stranded in the middle of the track. Let's see how the other cars have dealt with it. Actually, Jorge Marquinez actually went straight into the car that was stranded across the track. Jorge Marquinez is out of this race, and Henry Bennett gets away with the skin of his teeth, and I think Guerrero also got away with the skin of his teeth as well. That was a very, very scary instant for your race leaders. Guerrero had to think about braking and stopping for that stranded car in the middle of the track, but instead he lifted out the brake, went left, just narrowly avoided the front wing. But the same could not be said for Jorge Marquinez.
No, and I think that's took out 3 or 4 cars out of this race, but Henry Bennett just survived that by the skin of his teeth. But now he's got Fernando Guerrero to worry about, only half a second behind him. But Jorge Marquinez had nowhere to go, man. Had nowhere to go in that accident, and he was just an unlucky victim of that. The car was stranded in the middle of the track, and obviously Montreal isn't a very wide circuit, as Fernando Guerrero looks like he may have even got into the lead.
Yeah, man, this also all plays into Christian Steele's hands. There's a little bit of trouble coming in towards pit road for Henry Bennett. Bennett was going to head down towards pit road. Fernando Guerrero was going to stay out, and that's a situation that can happen here, especially with the way the pit road entry is here. The cars will actually brake much earlier for the corner than the cars heading towards pit road, and that almost caught out Henry Bennett. And let's see him just get himself stopped in the box, taking the fuel and tires towards the end of this race. He's going to be at the very, very front pit box. Where is Christian Steele? This is more importantly, he's heading his way down the back straight into the final chicane. I think he'll get just ahead here. We'll have to see. Henry Bennett is still in his box and actually still waiting for that fuel to go in as Christian Steele heads his way into turn number 1. And I think Christian Steele's going to get it here if Henry Bennett is not too careful. And actually, Henry Bennett is going to come out behind Christian Steele. That is exactly what Christian Steele wanted. With that instant coming out of turn number 2 with your race leaders and a little bit of lap traffic, that has put him into P number 1 in this race.
Yeah, definitely, and I think Henry Bennett just lost a lot of time there in that incident in turn 1 on that last lap, and that's unfortunately cost him the lead. So Christian Steele is now going to be leading this race when Fernando Guerrero, who is currently leading it, comes down onto pit lane. But Hal Valverde now is on the tail of Henry Bennett, so Henry Bennett could lose another position here.
Yeah, that could be a possibility depending on where Fernando Guerrero comes out as he heads his way down on towards the lane as well. A little bit of a puff of white smoke there coming in towards the yellow cones to get himself slowed down to the 64 kilometers an hour speed limit here at Montreal, as he is pit stall would be quite far down as well in P number 3 in terms of pit stalls. And there is Henry Bennett coming down the pit straight. Also, Christian Steele is also coming down the it was the back straight here, heading down onto the brakes in towards the final chicane. There is Guerrero stopped in his box, and this will be very, very interesting indeed. He's going to be out and away. Will he be ahead of Christian Steele, though? We will have to see, and this is going to be very, very close, but I think Guerrero has just got him on the exit of pit road there. So Guerrero is going to hold P number 1 for now. Christian Steele gets himself up from P number 4 all the way up into P number 2, and Henry Bennett is falling behind quite a bit here. I wonder if he has a little bit of damage compared to Christian Steele's car, actually. He seems to be off the pace here.
Yeah, he does, and I think Henry Bennett is the big loser here from the pit stops. He's been leading this race from the start, but now he's just not there anymore. He's dropped 4 seconds back behind our leader.
Yeah, and the major factor allowing Guerrero to take the race lead right now is he had an absolute monster of an in-lap, 1 second faster than Christian Steele's in-lap, and that was the thing that put him ahead or coming off of pit road. And now this race is going to be very, very interesting from here on out. Will Christian Steele manage to get past Fernando Guerrero for the race win? Will Henry Bennett try and get himself back into the race from that P number 3 position, as most of your cars, actually all of your cars, have headed their way down on towards pit lane? And I think it's time to maybe go RaceSpot TV fan immersion with the driver of the number 3. Opportunity there for Christian Steele coming down into turn number 10 hairpin, but that chance wasn't capitalized upon, as actually he falls a couple more tenths of a second behind your race leader. Your race leader got a very good run coming out of turn number 10, able to stretch that gap up when he was looking, when Christian Steele was actually looking very, very threatening as we come towards 11 laps to go in this race, and it's going to be a battle between Fernando Guerrero and Christian Steele for the race win. In terms of other battles going on throughout your field, however, it's not really all that much to talk about, especially with the amount of lap down cars that we have. In fact, there isn't really any other battles going on except for this for P number 1, and actually for P number 3 as well, perhaps. Actually, that is a little bit of lap traffic in with Henry Bennett right there, so we will actually, that is Valverde actually, and he is actually called right up to the back of Henry Bennett. Even though Valverde has had his fair share of spins over the course of this race, he's managed to bring himself back into it, especially with the instance that Henry Bennett got himself involved in, especially coming out of turn number 2. He now has a chance at P number 3, whereas he didn't have before when he had the spins.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean, I think just the amount of incidents we've seen today has just meant that actually some drivers have been able to come back into the frame of things and be able to challenge for podium positions like Gilles Valverde. And it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with Henry Bennett, because he is in the draft. He's only about 4 tenths back, so as Christian Steele looks like he's lost quite a lot of time to our leader now, but Gilles Valverde at the moment is definitely looking like he wants to challenge for that P3.
Yeah, exactly. Valverde was actually around about 4 tenths of a second faster last time by than Henry Bennett. So Henry Bennett either has a little bit of damage to that machine, or he's just waning in the later parts of this race, as Valverde setting the fastest lap of anyone that time by 3 tenths faster than even your race leader. Meanwhile, Christian Steele did lose around about 4 or 5 tenths of a second to your race leader that time by. So a very slow lap for Christian Steele, but a very, very fast one indeed for Gilles Valverde as he tries to hunt down what was the absolutely dominant race leader at the start of this race. And look how far he's fallen.
Yeah, definitely, and he has now fallen about 3 seconds back from Fernando Guerrero in the lead, as Gilles Valverde now is really getting close to the back of Henry, and Henry, I think, is going to be looking in his mirrors. He's going to be looking to defend now rather than try and attack to catch those 2 leaders, and I think Valverde might get past in the next few laps, Conroy.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we have to keep an eye on here coming into the last 9 or 10 laps of this race. No opportunity for Gilles Valverde coming down into the turn 10 hairpin, and not really a great run out of it either to capitalize on maybe making a move, a very risky move coming down into the final chicane, but he's not going to be close enough this time. I think he needs an absolutely fantastic run through the final chicane to maybe make a move coming down into turn number 1. Let's see if he gets it here. First apex is fine, second apex is fine, but they were also very, very fine for Henry Bennett as well, and he's going to get the draft here, but again, he's not going to be close enough to make a move down into turn number 1, and he's just going to have to put off that move for another couple of corners at least. And where would you say is the best are the best passing spots on this racetrack? Obviously coming down into turn number 10 and turn number 1, but where else could you make a move?
I mean, you could just make a slight lunge up the inside coming into 13 and 14, which is that final chicane. Maybe coming down into 3 and 4. I wouldn't really recommend anywhere else because they are quite heavy braking zones. You're coming into quite slow seas borders as Valverde really gets close to the back of Henry Bennett coming through turn 6 and 7 there. But we've only got 8.5 laps left of this race, so Valverde has not got long to get this past done.
Not long at all, as that gap has closed up by around about the same margin that Christian Steele lost out just 2 laps ago. So this battle for the race lead is back on in terms of Christian Steele's charge for P number 1. And it's also going to be a battle for P number 3 between Henry Bennett and Gilles Valverde, as again another run out of the turn number 10 hairpin goes begging for Gilles Valverde. He just tracks out a little bit too much, and he has to actually just delayed getting on the throttle so much, and that's just given the advantage to Henry Bennett coming out of turn number 10, and that's maybe a thing that he should work on. He does close up a little bit under the brakes for the final chicane, but again, not really a great run coming out that corner to make a move down into turn number 1, and this must be so frustrating, just seeing opportunities maybe to make a pass, but you're just too far back to make any use of them.
Yeah, definitely, and that is one of the most frustrating things as a driver, is seeing that car ahead of you. You know you're close, you know you have the pace to get past, but you just cannot make the opportunities happen. And we know Montreal is quite a hard circuit, it's very tight and twisty. Apart from one corner, it is basically just chicanes, so that makes this even harder to get past here. Obviously the only corner that isn't a chicane is the turn 10 hairpin, so it just shows how difficult this circuit is for overtaking. And Valverde is definitely showing that actually maybe he doesn't have the pace to get past Henry Bennett, or he just cannot find the opportunity.
Yeah, he was just 1/10 of a second slower that time by, well, in terms of Henry Bennett's lap time. So he's not catching at all, but he is there and able to capitalize on any mistake that Henry Bennett makes. As actually Bennett locks up a little bit coming through turn number 10, but Valverde yet again can't get the power down coming out of turn number 10, even though Henry Bennett had made a mistake in the middle of the corner, and Henry Bennett's just going to extend that gap, even though Valverde has the draft over him coming down the back straight. And will this also be a difference in setup as well, with how well you can get off the corners in these cars?
Yeah, maybe, and it could also be down to the fact that Valverde might be running a little bit more downforce. We see him getting very close to Bennett in the corners, but as soon as we get on a straight, he's nowhere. He has not got the speed, and his top speed is about 4 kilometers down on what Henry Bennett, or it's about 4 kilometers faster about what Bennett can do it. So maybe it's Henry's got a little bit less fuel, so he's got a little bit less weight, or we could be seeing that Valverde is struggling for tyres, or maybe it is the fact that he just cannot get that power down off the corner.
It was actually a great lap for Henry Bennett last time by that may have staved off an attack from Valverde, as he actually did a 120.9 last time by, the only driver in the 120s last time by. So a little bit of a late resurgence for Henry Bennett, but I don't think it's going to be enough for him to be able to catch up to the back of Christian Steele, unless Christian Steele and Fernando Guerrero, your race leader, manage to get themselves in a little bit of fisticuffs. I don't think you should really factor in Henry Bennett or Valverde into this race win, at least at this stage, as again a little bit of a lockup for Henry Bennett coming into turn number 10, and now this may be Valverde's opportunity. He's closer than he ever has been on Henry Bennett coming down this back straight, but again, Bennett is just using that drive off the corner to stave off yet another attack coming down into the final chicane. And well, this is just must be so frustrating for Valverde right now. He sees the driver in front of him, he can see perhaps where to get past, but he's in all the wrong places at all at the wrong times, as well as he may have a move coming down into turn number 1, but no, he's not going to make that lunge just yet. But I think if he's going to be that close coming onto the final lap, I think he's just going to stick his nose down there.
Yeah, I think once you get towards the final laps of this race, we've just got under 6 laps to go. People are going to get a little bit more aggressive. People are going to want them positions, and I would not be surprised for Valverde to see him stick his nose up the inside, even if it's just a warning, as he gets very close to contact to the back of that car of the number 4 of Henry Bennett, just avoiding an accident there coming down into turn 6 and 7. But Henry Bennett doing a brilliant job to defend from him at the moment.
It could also be the dirty air also factoring in, even though these aren't very high-speed corners by any means, as Henry Bennett makes a mistake coming through the third chicane. This is the opportunity that the number 10 machine of Valverde needs on the run down towards the turn number 10 hairpin. A little bit of a tap towards side of the car to side of the car. Henry Bennett has to push wide in the middle of the apex. A little bit of cutback move for Valverde. He struggles to get the power down yet again. He's going to be close though. He's going to be sat right behind that rear wing of the 4 of Henry Bennett. He's going to make this move coming down into the final chicane, because he can't afford to miss out on this opportunity, as he sticks his car there on the outside. He's going to try it. He's going to drag the brakes in towards the corner, and he's not going to be able to make the move stick. And there's another opportunity maybe coming down into turn number 1. By second, Valverde cannot make this move complete, as actually Bennett holds his position just for now. But that was a very, very scary moment for Henry Bennett when he made that mistake coming out of the third chicane. He still holds his position despite Valverde's best attempts.
Yeah, definitely. We saw that little bit of contact coming down in towards turn 10. That was just those guys trying to defend from each other. But I think what hampered Valverde is he got a little powered down a little bit too quickly coming out of turn 10. Had he not done that, I think he would have got the pass done. He was alongside, maybe should have gone to the inside coming down into that chicane, probably would have had a better chance because Henry Bennett would have seen him there and knew that he would not be able to turn into the corner. So I think going to the outside was a bit of a mistake for Valverde. He may have lost that opportunity, but back markers could come into this now. Bennett is going to get a little bit held up, and Valverde again has got another run.
Yep, he's got another run coming down into turn number 10. Not as good as he was last time, but he's going to go for the inside line and almost just going to get it as he taps it around. Perhaps Henry Bennett, no, he manages to correct the spin that he was about to enter. Gilles Valverde is still behind Henry Bennett after a hopeful move coming down into the turn number 10 hairpin, and he's not going to have an opportunity coming down into the final chicane like he did last time. But again, nothing that Valverde is doing is working right now. It was a hopeful move coming down into turn number 10. You could say that he didn't have the right to go for the corner, but he's doing everything he can do in the last stage of this race to get on that final step.
Yeah, definitely, and he's definitely starting to take risks. We've got 4 laps remaining in this race. We've had 29 laps so far onto lap 30, so Valverde is definitely now going to be pushing harder than he has been all race. We've seen that with that contact we saw on the last 2 laps coming in down into turn 10 through turn 10, and Henry Bennett did very well to avoid that car going into a spin and also collecting Valverde at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And will we see another hopeful lunge from Gilles Valverde as he almost takes the position there, almost gets his nose alongside, coming through the second chicane there, but not able to make it work on the run down towards the third chicane now. Valverde a little bit too far behind to maybe make a move, but you can see he's trying to get that car so deep on the brakes to try and close that gap. He's going to have another run coming down into turn number 10. Is it going to be another hopeful lunge? Maybe coming down around the outside this time instead of the inside. It's going to be the outside line. Maybe a chance at a cutback, get the run off the corner for Gilles Valverde, but no, Henry Bennett places his car in exactly the right place he needed, but he's not going to stop this run from Gilles Valverde coming around the outside of this little kink in the straight, heading towards the final chicane here. Gilles Valverde is ahead by half a car length, quarter of a car length, almost clear here, coming down his braking zone, but no, Henry Bennett's going to go late on the brakes as well, side by side through the final chicane. Henry Bennett's going to tap the wall of champions, but this is going to be Gilles Valverde through with only 3 laps to go.
Yeah, that was a brilliant move by Gilles Valverde. He just had that advantage coming off of turn 10, used the draft to his advantage, and just had that few kilometres an hour more speed that he needed to be able to get past Henry Bennett. Henry Bennett was not going to give up, though. He was going to defend that inside line coming into that final chicane. He did not want Gilles Valverde to turn off in front of him, but Gilles has already got a gap of around 0.6 of a second, and that gap is getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it is, and it's not going to be enough with only 3 laps to go to catch up to the likes of Fernando Guerrero and Christian Steele, who are still within almost a half a second here. So this battle isn't over yet, but his time is running out. 2.5 laps to go for Christian Steele to maybe make any opportunity anywhere on track. He has to get a little bit closer first before he makes an opportunity of it coming down into one of the heavy braking zones. Maybe this will play a factor. Turn number 10 on the last lap if Christian Steele can get himself in a position to challenge. Not going to be this lap though, way too far back, around about 0.7 of a second right now, as your P number 1 driver heads his way down to the back straight, and it's going to be Christian Steele following relatively closely. But again, this gaps up to around about 0.7 seconds between Christian Steele and Fernando Guerrero, as actually Steele has a terrible run coming out of the final chicane. That gap is now up to 1 second coming across the line right now. I think Guerrero has the advantage here, but any mistake from Guerrero and Christian Steele is close enough to challenge at the end on the final lap.
He is, and we know he's got pace. He has been quicker than Fernando on laps past. He wasn't that time, he was about 3/10 slower, but we know Steele has got pace. We know he can win this race, but it's just going to be finding that pace too, and also finding the opportunity. He is running out of time as we have sent a car round. We've had Kate and Bomber Bash round on the final chicane.
Yeah, a shame for that particular driver. There's a battle going on with P number 12 as well. They're coming towards the final 2 laps here, heading their way down the back straight. This is Kleber Mora in the number 25 machine. P number 12. This is Karsten Budvoy there in the number 18 machine. Not close enough to make a move coming down into the final chicane, as that car is still stranded there. The number 20 machine stranded on the sausage curves in the final chicane, not able to get any of the tyres contact in the ground, especially the rear tyres, to get himself off. And now he's stranded beach on the final chicane. Hopefully he gets that sorted by the time the leaders come around and take the white and checkered flags. Speaking of, though, it's gaps down again to 0.6 seconds between your race leader and P number 2, Christian Steele. But he's going to have a monster of a final lap here. White flag in the air here at Montreal in the Verizon IndyCar Series, and Christian Steele has a lot of time to make up if he wants a chance at this race win. There may be a little bit of lap traffic that could help him in terms of hindering Guerrero's progress ahead. There's Neil McBride. McBride actually has a little bit of Spain. Will he come back on track and impede the race leader? He almost does, but manages to keep it to driver's left-hand side of the racetrack. Gap is down to around about 0.6 seconds, so about a 10th advantage from when they crossed the line last time by. Christian Steele trying to do everything, get every corner entry, every corner apex, every corner exit absolutely perfect to try and close that gap and maybe make a hopeful dive into turn number 10 or a dive into the final chicane, as actually he messes up the third chicane here, and I think that's going to be the final nail in the coffin in terms of Christian Steele's challenge for the race win here. Absolutely fantastic drive for him in every other respect, especially with the great call on pitting just one lap earlier than your race leaders when they had trouble with a little bit of traffic. But your eventual race winner at this stage, the number 1 machine of Fernando Guerrero, is just going to head his way down towards the final chicane, and he's going to take this race win, we suspect, as long as he avoids that wall of champions, and he does. And it's going to be Fernando Guerrero, the number 1 machine, taking the race win here at Montreal. An absolutely fantastic drive from Guerrero means he finishes on the top spot. Christian Steele will have to finish in P number 2, and Yao Valverde finally getting past Henry Bennett. He inherits the 3rd step on the podium, and that was an absolutely fantastic race between the 10 and the 4.
Yeah, that was, and we saw some brilliant racing in those last few laps. Yao Valverde just had the opportunity there to get past Henry Bennett in the end. Henry Bennett put up a great defence. Unlucky for him, he started this race on pole. He led for the whole of the first stint, but just got unlucky with an incident on his in-lap. That lost him about 5 seconds, which meant that Fernando Guerrero and Christian Steele could make up time and get past. Yao Valverde, though, full kudos to him. He had a problem earlier on in the race, but he came back from it, and he managed to get a podium from it.
Yeah, exactly. A podium for Yao Valverde as Andrew Kinsella also heads his way across the line to take P number 7, the last car out on track. On the lead lap is going to be John Downing heading his way down a back straight, but no one's going to be challenging him at all. So we will have to go to your official race results here from Montreal. Taking the race win, it will be Fernando Guerrero once Christian Steele had a little bit of a mistake coming down into the 3rd chicane that sealed his fate, finishing 2.2 seconds behind your race leader in that 2nd place. Yao Valverde pulling off a fantastic drive to gain that final step on the podium, passing what was a very dominant early race leader in Henry Bennett. Bennett will have to finish in 4th place despite qualifying on pole position and being so dominant early on. Then taking P number 5 will be Timo Ronco, gaining 1 position over his 6th in qualifying. Richard Tam also having a good drive up to P number 6 in the race as well. Andrew Kinsella, P number 7. John Downing, Division 2 leader, will finish on the lead lap and in P number 8. That's a net gain of 8 positions for John Downing, an absolutely fantastic run for him. Then it's going to be Niall McBride finishing first of the cars, finishing 1 lap down in P number 9. Then it's Gonzalez, Christian Bourvoy, Kleber Mora, Karten Boumaswatch, Pierre Boudon, Matthew Talbot also finishing number 15, even though he wasn't the fastest driver out there and the lowest in terms of iRating. Still a very, very respectable finish for that particular driver. Jorge Marquinez earlier incident means he finishes P number 16, and it's Olivia Dean, Marcus Wolmuth, Rodrigo Azevedo, Austin Espety also involved in an earlier incident. He is in P number 20 after qualifying 7th. Humberto Ratman, Rocco Pereira, Wayne Sanderson, Alex Everett, Christian Carbanja, and Liam Quinn will round out the rest of your field. Now we do have the driver that finished in P number 2 in this race, and that is going to be Christian Steele. And I believe, Jack, you will have a few words for him to see how his race went.
So then, Christian, first of all, congratulations on your 2nd place. Just take us through your decision to pit a bit earlier, because it seems to pay off for you.
I figured that whatever Henry was going to do and what everyone else was going to do, I needed to do the opposite. And another reason was that I felt like I could get out there and I think there was a lap car in front, so which ultimately caused the crash, it seemed, from what I heard at least. And I figured, you know, why not take a chance and pit early? Maybe the cold tires will work, maybe they won't work, and worked out and gave me a little bit of track position, so it seems like that was the right call.
Yeah, it definitely was, and it was an incident. It took out Jorge Martinez from the race, but just also, you had a good battle there with Fernando Guerrero at the end. Did you ever think that you could get past him to win that race, or were you just, towards the end, just starting to settle back and trying to keep that second place?
I was pushing all I could, and I was hanging on for dear life, to be honest. I thought I might have a chance, but only if he made a mistake. I think he had better consistently, definitely, so it was going to be a Hail Mary for me to get by, but I was still fighting for it to the last lap.
Yeah, definitely. And just take us through what it's like to drive these cars around here, because it is a very tight, twisty circuit, a lot of slow speed corners that you've got to accelerate from, and these cars, when you're at low speed, they do not have a lot of downforce. So how do you deal with that power of coming out of those corners?
Yeah, we have to compromise with the setup quite a bit, so I'm running a quite tight setup to help mitigate that issue. And other than that, we just got to be a little bit careful on the curbs, and generally in the DW12 you don't really short shift that much, but a lot of those corners you kind of have to in order to help wheel spin in those low speed corners, like you said.
Any sponsor shout outs you want to get to? Who did it for you today?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone on Powerside Motorsports and Absolute Zero for helping build the car this week. It was a lot of fun to drive. And I want to thank you guys for helping out with the broadcast.
There you go, that is Christian Steele, your second place finisher today in the number 3 car. Back to you, Connery.
Exactly, a decent result for Christian Steele. Not able to make it work though for your race leader coming into the final few laps there, but still P number 2, very respectable finish for Christian Steele. And speaking of your race leader, in fact, we will be having perhaps Fernando Guerrero come in and join us here in the commentary box. And this is your race leader, Fernando Guerrero. And again, that was an absolutely fantastic race for you, and with the help of a little bit of an incident around the pit stop phase that allowed you to get ahead.
Yeah, that was a really crucial moment because I was trying to make an overcut on Henry. I wanted to be later than him because cold tires were a problem here with the cold weather, and I just was hoping for cleaner after Henry pit in lap 19, and I was thinking, okay, I have a clean track, I can push one lap longer, and then there were a massive amount of lap cars with cold tires. It was inevitable that happened, and I was fortunate enough to avoid the incident. Unfortunately, we lost not only Henry but Martinez, which was my teammate. But yeah, I could avoid that, and then it was really hard once again to keep the lead with cold tires after the pits because Christian was pushing really hard. But I saved a few push-to-passes for the second stint, and I don't know if it seemed easy on the television, but I tell you it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I think you knew, but I think you knew Christian Steele actually pitted early. So you put in an absolute monster of an in-lap, 1 second faster than Christian Steele's in-lap. And do you know that was go time from then on?
Well, to be honest, I didn't really think that Steele's strategy was going to work because, once again, cold tires were really bad here. And when I saw he pitted in lap 15, 16, I don't know, I thought, okay, well, he's out. Maybe he could finish podium, but I was sure he wasn't going to be able to fight for the win pitting that early, but somehow he managed to set some quick laps with cold tires, and that was the difference. He almost got me on the pits because I was only thinking about Henry, but yeah, Christian did a hell of a job in those laps.
Yeah, he really did, and I think that was very circumstantial as well. Perhaps without that incident coming out of turn number 2, maybe Christian fell a little bit further down the field than he did. But again, a good drive from you, Fernando, and a very good drive for Christian as well. And actually, if you want some more racing action tonight, then there's going to be the iRacing SK Modified Series at the Bullring tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and that is going to be a very, very exciting race indeed, Jack. Just like this one was so exciting as well.
Yeah, it definitely was. We saw some great racing from everyone out on track today, and just seeing how the drivers dealt with those cars and obviously used the advantage to get the passes done. Coming down into them tight chicanes was very good driving from everyone, so well done for that. It's been a very enjoyable race to commentate on.
Yeah, and it's only right we give the race leader, the race winner, sorry, a chance to promote anything he wants to promote in terms of his race team as well. Do you have anyone to thank, Fernando?
I want to thank my teammate, Jorge Marquinez, and also Ricardo Jimenez, which is my team boss, and he was spotting for both me and Jorge. Yeah, the whole team is really putting a lot of effort on open wheels now at the end of the season. So yeah, thanks to all Champs iRacing team.
Yep, and it looks like that open wheel focus is really paying off for you guys. But that's all we have time for here on RaceSpot TV, streaming live on iRacing Live. That was a great race in the IndyCar series at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Join us next week for more of the same. I think it's going to be IMSA. See ya.